In 2018, archaeologists in Jordan dug through the ash of an ancient campfire. The campfire was 14,400 years old. Buried inside that ash, they found bread. Real bread made from wild grain, ground by hand and baked on hot stone. This bread predated farming by 4,000 years. For over a century, the story was, farming came first, then bread. That story is backwards. For most of human history, people moved from place to place, following food. No farms. No fixed homes. No stored food supply. Wild grasses were everywhere, in the landscapes they roamed. The seeds were packed with energy. But raw grain is almost impossible to eat. The outer husk is tough enough to survive years in dry storage. The starch inside is locked in tight structures your gut can barely break down. And buried inside that grain is a natural padlock. It binds to the iron, the zinc, the calcium, and carries them out of your body. Raw grain offers the promise of nutrition, but barely delivers it. The first step toward solving this was the grinding stone. Humans have been using grinding stones for at least 30,000 years. You crush the seeds between two rocks until they break apart into a powder. That powder is already far more digestible than whole raw grain. Add water to that powder, and something starts to happen. You get a paste. And at some point, that paste ended up near a fire. Maybe an accident. Maybe curiosity. A wet grain paste dropped onto a hot stone hardens quickly. It becomes something you can pick up and eat. Softer than raw grain. More flavorful. More filling. You could carry it. It lasted for days. This flatbread required only flour, water, and heat. The same discovery was made independently by virtually every human culture on Earth. Roti, tortilla, chapati, lavash. Different names, the same three ingredients. But the flatbread was just the beginning. The bigger accident came from a bowl of grain paste, left out overnight. By morning, the paste was bubbling. It had swelled and grown in the bowl. Invisible organisms, floating in the air, had landed in the dough. Wild yeast, single-celled creatures too small to see with the naked eye. They'd been eating the sugars in the paste and releasing a gas. That gas was trapped inside the dough, inflating it from within. When someone cooked this risen dough, they tasted something that had never existed before. Lighter than flatbread. More open. More complex in flavor. Nobody knew what yeast was. Nobody could see what was doing this. But the result tasted better, so they did it again. And without knowing it, they'd also made their bread dramatically more nutritious. Remember that natural padlock inside the grain. Fermentation dissolves it. The iron, the zinc, the calcium, all become available. Ancient bakers were accidentally solving a nutritional problem they couldn't even see. For thousands of years, they did this without knowing why it worked. If bread just surprised you, good. There are hundreds of stories like this one that most people never encounter. Subscribing is how you make sure you catch them. The same accident that produced bread also produced something else. A grain paste left to ferment for a few hours becomes rising dough. The same paste left much longer becomes a low-alcohol drink. One discovery. Two outcomes. Many researchers believe ancient brewing and baking were born at the same moment. The first person who left grain paste out too long may have invented both. Around 5,000 years ago, Egypt turned bread into an industrial operation. Specialized ovens were built, professional bakers emerged. Researchers have identified more than 40 distinct bread varieties from Egyptian remains. Bread wasn't just food. It was currency. Workers at the Giza Pyramid site were paid in bread and beer. The bakery that fed them has been excavated. It could produce hundreds of loaves every single day. This was the first industrial food production operation in human history. Bread became a religious symbol, a divine offering, a sign of life itself. In Hebrew scripture, in early Christian practice, In ancient Egyptian ritual, bread was everywhere. So here's the story most people were taught. Humans invented farming. Surplus grain appeared, and they learned to make bread. But that bread in Jordan predated farming in the same region by 4,000 years. Bread came first. Farming came second. So what made people start farming? Consider how much work went into making bread. Grinding enough grain for a single flatbread took 30 minutes to several hours. People doing that work needed grain available reliably all year round. Some researchers now argue the desire for bread is what drove the shift to farming. There's a site in Turkey called Gobekli Tepe. It's a massive carved stone complex, 11,500 years old. It predates farming in the region. At this site, archaeologists found large stone basins used to process grain at scale. These basins were feast scale, capacity for hundreds of people. People were traveling long distances to this site for ritual gatherings around grain-based food. Some researchers argue farming didn't create this kind of feasting. Feasting created farming. Once grain farming took hold, everything that followed became possible. Grain could be stored for years without spoiling. It could be moved across hundreds of miles. It could feed thousands of people from a single harvest. Armies ran on bread. Cities were sustained by grain stores. Tax systems were built around grain. Empires grew from the ability to control it. Without grain-based foods like bread, most early cities couldn't have existed. What's remarkable isn't the bread itself. It's how it was found. Ancient bakers maintained living yeast cultures for centuries without knowing yeast existed. They selected grain varieties with better baking properties by taste alone. They ran a chemistry lab with no theory, no instruments, no language for what was happening. And it worked perfectly. Practice always came before understanding. Every piece of bread you've ever eaten connects back 14,000 years. 14,000 years of lucky accidents. Each one noticed. Each one passed forward. Nobody who set that chain in motion knew what they were building. The most important food in human history wasn't invented. It was stumbled upon. See you in the next one.